Ready to go.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Today we're working on this little snapper mower with a Honda motor on it. Now, this thing's a little bit of a dinosaur, but the entertainment value was there, so I decided to go ahead and fix it anyway. So what I've got is when you start it, it smokes like there's no tomorrow. And that tells me to check the oil. I checked the oil, and it was thin and very full. And that indicates that the carburetor is leaking back into the motor. So we're going to go ahead and shut the fuel down and tear the carburetor down and either replace it or go ahead and fix the needle seat problem. And we'll clean the jets and everything while we're at it because it's always a good idea. So all you new people out there, go ahead and subscribe. It's free and that's what we work for. So let's get started. As you can see, this thing's a little bit of a dinosaur. We'll take a look at the drive system in a little while. It is just the coolest thing you'll ever see. So on a Honda, even the old ones or new ones, it's always going to be 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 10 millimeter all day long. So let's get our bolts out of the way. I won't use this to put it back together, but it definitely expedites taking it apart. Let's see now. Oh, we got one more bolt. And there you have it. Get a magnet to keep our bolts on so we don't lose them. And take lots of pictures here. You want to make sure you get this linkage in the right place when you're putting her back together. And this won't be nearly as obvious as it is now. Then you got this, which you can see has a different one side to the other, which fits this way. But if you put it this way, it's not going to line up correctly. So the high side goes to the high side of the cylinder port. Oh, look at this. Our return spring is off on the governor. It started out off. So let's take this over. I'm going to go ahead and give it a quick bath, and then we'll take it over to the bench and see what we've got. Now let's get her apart and see what we've got going on. Okay. Let's pull the needle out. Pull the float. This has got a rubber tip float, or I'm sorry, a rubber tip needle. And you very rarely see those go bad. So I'm going to take a look at those under a little bit more. Okay, that looks okay. I don't see any contusions or marks or anything in it. So it's entirely possible there's just a little dirt in here. Now, even though this is an older Honda motor, the design for the carburetors hasn't changed forever. And the infamous jets, you always hear about the jets being clogged and all that. Jets are right here. And you can see I just loosened it with this. Now, we'll go over the screw gun. We're going to hit the edge of the carburetor and it should hop right out. We're really close. See, we're right up to the edge. But be gentle. Better to hit it 3 or 4 times softly than 1 time hard. There it goes. And when you're putting these back together, make a note that the flat spot and the pointy end, see this end is slightly larger than this end, it goes in the carburetor like this. If you put it in upside down, it will not work. So let's have a look at the jets, see what we've got. And Honda jets are just straight down the middle. I can see a little bit of daylight, but not much. So what we're going to do is run a wire down the center. And that fought me a little bit, and it shouldn't have. You can see it's running loose on the wire now, which means something poked out. Now that jet's ready to go. Take a look at the bowl. The bowl's in nice shape, so it's definitely usable. So now what we're going to do is clean the body and then run the wire all the way through down the center. And we'll be back shortly. Now that she's been through the ultrasonic, and you can use a carburetor cleaner bath, That's up to you. Now we double check the jet, and I can see a lot more daylight through the jet than I could before. So we're going to hang the needle on the float. And this is probably the most fumbly part right here. Getting the needle to go inside the carburetor. There we go. That wasn't too fumbly today. But if you do it and drop the needle 3 times, don't lose any sleep. Definitely check it and get a good look and make sure she's operating. And then blow in this while you move this up and down, or turn it upside down. When it's like this, you should be able to blow through it. Like this, you should not. Okay, nothing. And it blows freely. So we know we've got that right. So let's double check our emulsion tube, make sure we've got a line straight through it. And what this does is premixes the air going into the fuel. So it gives a little bit of head start. Let's get our jet back in place. There are no threads on this little beginning part. Usually she'll fall right in, but sometimes she doesn't. They just sort of thread her down. There we go. It gets caught on the threads that the nut that holds the bowl on use. And she should be pretty close now. There she is. And snug it up. Don't go crazy. Let's get the bowl back in place. And she's ready to go. Give that a little bit of a snug. And let's get her back on the machine and see how she sounds. Now on these Hondas, there's virtually no difference between a brand new one right now and an old guy like this. Mechanically, they're almost exactly the same. It looks like we lost our linkage. There we go. So now you want to go back together and as close to the reverse order of the way it came apart as possible. So you go here. Let's bend that spring a little bit so she hooks better. Come on, buddy. There you go. Now we'll go ahead and attach the fuel line. Now, like we said before, we're going to go back together in exactly the opposite order of the way we came apart. And that can be a little complicated on one of these. But we'll do our big guys first and we'll worry about the little screws second. So now we've got the carburetor on and the first plate. Now we'll put the motor heat plate on. Notice the gasket's still stuck to it and it's good enough to use. Now we're going to make sure that this goes on the same way that it came off, with the flare to the top. Now we'll do one turn on each screw, just to get everything to hold still. There we go. And we're looking good, looking good, looking good. Make sure we're not missing anything. Always get all the screws started before you tighten up anything. And there you go. So let's put some new fuel in her and put her on the ground and see what we've got. Now, first things first, let's see if she runs. So we'll go ahead and put her on full choke. And remember, it smoked like crazy before, but it was because the carburetor was leaking down into the oil and the oil level was very high. So now I've changed the oil and I went ahead and put a new fuel line on because I wouldn't stop thinking about that when it just wasn't good enough. Now we'll let the oil get out of the muffler. Okay, she is definitely kicking a little bit of oil. She's a smoker. And it's entirely possible the muffler is still full. But the only reason I saved this machine wasn't so much to sell it as to get a look at that drive gear. So I'm going to go ahead and restart it, and I want you to see how the drive gear looks on this one. As you can see, you've got two wheels, and you can adjust how close to the inside or outside you get on the wheels. And the closer you get to the inside, the slower the wheels turn. Now we're all the way on the outside, so it's as fast as it'll go. And now it's running relatively slow. This is by far the most terrifying self-propel mechanism I've ever seen. And I've seen it twice so far. This is not the first one. And one of my original videos had the same one once upon a time years ago. Now, I can't call that one a success because she's a smoker. And that engine's so old, I don't think she's worth fixing. The only reason I put this one back together and got her running was just to see the self-propel mechanism in action. It's a pretty interesting little setup, and it does work, but you sure don't want to push it with your foot or get your toes anywhere near that mess. So, all you new people out there, go ahead and subscribe. It's free, and if you made it this far, you might as well. So, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.